Behind me is one of the most toxic pieces of land in London. But until 2001, it was a popular destination, drawing in millions of people, from kids to members of the royal family, to come climb it and ski back down it. What? So if it was safe for all those years, when did it suddenly turn toxic? And how dangerous actually is it? Welcome to the London Alp.
I found it rather difficult to ski on this plastic mud.
For most of history, nighttime in London meant total darkness. Everything shut and everyone went home. But in the early 19th century, that stopped being the case because of a new infrastructure being built across London. Gas. Gas brought power to our streets. These lampposts in St James's Park are still powered by it today. It also brought power to our factories and our kitchens. Before long, everyone was reliant on it. But we weren't getting it from under the sea or international pipelines like we do today. Instead, we were making it ourselves in big factories on the edges of our cities where we cooked coal in ovens. One of these factories was Beckton Gasworks, which at one point was the biggest gasworks in the whole world, and is where the surrounding area of Beckton actually gets its name from. After they'd burned the coal to make the gas, they were left with byproducts, which they just used to dump at first, but then they realised they could turn these byproducts into further products like insecticides and fertilisers, inks and dyes and tar for our roads. So they opened the tar and liquor works next door. The problem was that once they'd finished draining every last ounce of good out of this material, they were left with this toxic, ashy, sand-like material that was really expensive to transport. So they just used to dump it as close as possible. Here. Over the years, this ash built up and up until it started to look like a miniature mountain range had popped up in East London, and so it was aptly named the London Alps. By the late 1960s, we discovered natural gas under the North Sea, and suddenly making gas by cooking coal in an oven in East London made no economic sense, so Beckton's coal plant closed in 1969. In the 1980s, there was a push to regenerate the Docklands area, but having a big toxic spoil heap in the middle of it didn't help Beckton's appeal. They reduced and re-landscaped most of them in the 1970s, but by the 1980s they decided that one should be reclaimed rather than removed, whatever that means. There was a big library being built in St Pancras at the time, the British Library to be precise, which has basements. And the plan was that they would excavate the soil and clay from this basement area and smear it on top of the toxic waste and whatever else was inside the mound. And suddenly, the pile of toxic waste was in fact a mountain and totally safe for anyone, to ski on. Yes, I kid you not, in 1986, Mountaintop Limited got planning permission to turn this not at all toxic mound into a dry ski slope. London's not really known for snow, including a bar, restaurant and gift shop. Construction was completed in 1988 and it was opened on the 8th of December by no less than Princess Diana. It proved very popular, attracting at its peak, pun intended, around 500,000 visitors every year. I spoke to someone recently who said she attended many a corporate event at the London Alp and said it was very fun. In fact, this pile of definitely not toxic waste was so popular that it stayed open for 13 years.
She said, "Does it hurt when you fall down?" So I said, "I fell on my bum, it hurt." She said, "You fell on your bum?" I said, "Yes."
So what did they actually find inside the mound, and why is no one skiing on it today? Before we get into any of that, if you're planning on travelling to the actual Alps or anywhere abroad in the next couple of months, you might be interested in this video's sponsor, eSIM.io. With eSIM.io, you can travel like a local without all those toxic bolt-ons and roaming charges. All you've got to do is download the app, tell them where you're going, select your package and install your travel eSIM. They have got both time-based data plans and also a pay-as-you-go option. And with said pay-as-you-go option, if you've got balance left over at the end of your trip, you can use said balance on your next trip. And with their One SIM feature, you don't need to install a new SIM every time you buy a new package. You install one SIM, keep it for life, and your app switches networks automatically across over 190 countries. That is great for short trips and stopovers. If that sounds interesting to you, you can visit their website or download the app from the link in the description. Back to the Alp. My first question was, why did people trust it? But put simply, this wasn't a rogue operation. This was council approved, promoted, and a member of the royal family came to open it. With all of those names behind it and no one shouting about its potential toxicity, no one was going to question whether it was safe. Today, with the internet and social media and YouTubers running around making videos about stuff, things might have been different. But remember, this was a time before all of that. After all, they dumped at least 45 centimetres of other ground stuff on top, so it was probably safe and people were just excited to go skiing in London. In 1994, Staffordshire got a brand new indoor ski slope, which used real snow, followed by Milton Keynes in 2000, and suddenly the idea of skiing down a pile of toxic waste in East London looked a little bit less glamorous than before. Then in 2001, new owners London Snowdome Limited submitted plans to turn this into an indoor ski slope, complete with a creche, restaurants and a travel agents, all things you probably wouldn't have envisioned for a pile of toxic waste 30 years ago. They closed the site for redevelopment, and none of that ended up happening, and now it's just sat there. You used to be able to climb up the outside and see the main ski slope, which is now covered in totally safe trees, but then they closed the whole thing, put these signs up, and now it looks like maybe it wasn't safe after all. Apparently the cost of not just building the thing, but clearing up all of the toxic waste underneath was proving too expensive. Which brings us to what's actually inside London's Alp and how dangerous actually is it? Well, it turns out that it's not just dirt and it's not just ash and it's not just the leftovers from the tar and liquor works either. It's a mix of arsenic, heavy metals and chemical waste too, including acidic sludge and something called spent oxide, which has been stained blue by a chemical used to clean gas. That's been topped off with tar, rubble, the extracted earth from the basement of the British Library, a whole load of concrete to try and seal it off, and about 45 centimetres of soil. There's even rumours of a steam train in there, though it's hard to confirm that one. Over time, the concrete cap has cracked, and let's just say it's not in the best state, but no one really wants to deal with it. It's not leaking dramatically, but it's not harmless either. So is it hugely dangerous back in the day? Probably not any more than just skiing down it, but also people worked on this thing every day, breathing in the Alp dust, and back then it was just seen as probably fine, but maybe it probably wasn't. Today it's all closed off and capped and no one's skiing down it, so it's probably pretty harmless to most people. Just don't stay hanging around for too long, he says, talking for hours next to the mound. Even now it doesn't seem to bother people that it's closed off and toxic. People seem to break in all the time and everything seems pretty well worn in. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be the YouTuber who takes you to the top, because I like my channel, I don't want it taken down, and it is actually unsafe. Today, Beckton's still vital when it comes to services. Behind me is a waste management service, and behind that's a power station right next to the old gasworks. But for 25 years now, it's sat empty, too expensive and risky to move or even touch much, with any development basically having to work around it. So what's going to happen to it? Well, Newham Council owns the land, and there's a real estate listing online that fails to mention the toxic waste, that says rent is £25,000 a year and it would be perfect for a variety of leisure uses, including turning it into an indoor ski slope. They also mention a potential for a residential development, subject to necessary consents, which I'm assuming is going to include what happens to the massive pile of industrial toxic waste. In the meantime, people will be monitoring the groundwater and repairing the caps if necessary. Apparently it's labelled a nature reserve, in the same way as Chernobyl, I guess. So while the land can be sealed, it can never be reset. But what you can do is rebrand it. A toxic mound sold as a London ski resort. Pretty mad, that. This has made me really want to go skiing, but not here.